It was her third week in college. The sky that morning hung low, gray and blurred, as if it too had something heavy sitting on its chest. Ava Mitchell stepped quietly through the side entrance of Willow Heights University. No one really noticed her, and that's how she preferred it. Her footsteps were soft, almost hesitant, as if she was trying not to leave a trace. Backpack slung over one shoulder, hair pulled into a loose braid. She walked the halls like a whisper moving through wind. She was the kind of girl who rarely made eye contact, not out of rudeness, just caution. Ava had been like this since high school, since the last time she'd trusted too soon and been broken too deeply. But college. College was supposed to be different. A new start, a blank page. Except it wasn't. She'd been at Willow Heights for just a few days when she met Rachel Carter, tall, magnetic, with eyes like sharp glass. Rachel didn't need to say much, too. Command a room. Her presence alone bent people like wind against trees, and for some reason, she didn't like Ava. It started small, looks, whispers, snickers behind hands. Ava had seen it all before. Then came the comments. "I love your shoes, Ava." Rachel had smiled sweetly one morning, her voice smooth like syrup vintage, right? Or just thrift store sad. Bree giggled beside her, loud and mocking. Lena smirked faintly as always, silent but present, the kind who watched cruelty like a movie she'd seen before. Ava didn't respond, just kept walking. That silence, it made things worse, because people like Rachel, they fed on reactions. When Ava didn't give them what they wanted, they decided to take it instead. By the end of the first week, things had escalated. Sticky notes on her locker. Freak. Go back where you came from, waste of a dorm bed. Her books went missing from the library desk one day, later found torn near the fountain. Her assignments were stolen off her laptop in the lab. Someone had changed her background photo to a meme that made her look like a ghost. But what truly broke her spirit wasn't what they did. It was how no one stopped them. No one said, "Hey, that's enough." No one even asked, "Are you okay?" So Ava shrank, bit by bit, day by day, until there was barely anything left. It was on a rainy Thursday night, just past midnight, when Ava stood barefoot on the roof of her dorm building. She wasn't crying. She wasn't angry. She was just quiet, so tired. The wind was gentle, almost kind, like the only thing that noticed she was hurting. Her toes curled over the edge of the roof as she looked down at the courtyard below. It didn't look scary. It looked peaceful, and for a moment, she felt like letting go would mean finally escaping the noise inside her own head. The voices that said she wasn't enough, that she'd never matter, that she'd always be invisible, or worse, laughed at. She closed her eyes, and then she heard a voice. Not from behind her, from inside her, a whisper. So soft, so familiar. "You're still here for a reason, Ava." She blinked, her breath catching. It was her mother's voice. Not real, but remembered. You matter more than they'll ever understand, and if they can't see your light, maybe it's because it's blinding. Her legs trembled, not from fear, from realization. She stepped back slowly, carefully, sat down on the edge of the rooftop, cried. The kind of cry that cracks something open inside you and lets in the air you didn't know you were suffocating without. And in that moment, Ava Mitchell decided she wasn't going to disappear. She wasn't going to give them that power. She was going to stay, and not just stay, but fight her way. The next morning, the light coming through the window wasn't any brighter. The rain hadn't stopped. The whispers in the halls hadn't faded. But Ava's eyes, they had changed. They weren't afraid anymore. They were watching, learning, waiting, because she had a plan now. She wasn't going to fight them with fists. She wasn't going to play their game. She was going to rewrite the rules. Ava spent the weekend in the library, not hidden away, not crying in some quiet corner, but focused, steady, as if a fire had started somewhere deep inside her, not loud or destructive, just warm enough to stay alive. She studied more than just her course. Imperial. She watched people. She watched how Rachel carried herself, how Bree always laughed too loudly at the wrong things, and how Lena, the third one, lingered in the background like someone who didn't quite belong, and slowly, Ava began to understand something. These girls weren't strong. They were loud. They were popular. But they were also fragile. Their power only existed when no one challenged it. They ruled by fear and silence. So Ava made a decision. She wouldn't scream. She wouldn't shout. But she would no longer be quiet. Monday morning, Ava wore red. Not a loud, flashy red, but the soft, deep kind. A crimson cardigan, thick-knit, elegant. Something that made her feel seen. She let her hair fall down instead of tying it back. Put on light makeup. Just enough to feel like she was making a statement to herself. She looked in the mirror and whispered, "You are not who they say you are." Then she walked into her English Lit class and chose the seat in the front row. Rachel and Bree were already in the room, lounging in the back, legs crossed, whispering to each other. Bree glanced up and immediately snorted. Rachel tilted her head, curious, like a cat who sees a mouse acting brave. But Ava didn't flinch, didn't even look their way. When the professor, Dr. Keating, asked a question about the reading, Ava raised her hand, and when she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. "I think the character isolates herself because she believes no one will understand her pain. But what she doesn't see is her silence is the thing that keeps the bridge from ever being built." Dr. Keating paused, nodded. "That's actually quite insightful, Ava." Bree let out a fake cough behind her. Rachel muttered something under her breath, but Ava didn't care, because for the first time, she felt like herself. Later that afternoon, during lunch, Ava walked into the cafeteria with her tray and sat at a table by the window, alone, yes, but not hiding. A group of freshman girls passed by, and one of them smiled faintly at Ava. Just a flicker of recognition, a small thing, but not to Ava, 2 tables away. Rachel noticed, and her smile twisted. "Just a bit. Looks like our little shadow's decided she wants some sun." Bree laughed. "Think we should remind her where she belongs?" Rachel tapped her nails against the table. "No, let her play brave for now." But Ava saw the glance. She saw the way Rachel's eyes narrowed, and for the first time, she realized something. Rachel was watching her, not the other way around. That evening, Ava got an email from the Student Wellness Center, a message she hadn't expected. "Hi, Ava. Putting together a small peer support group for students navigating stress, adjustment, and social anxiety. You've been recommended by a student. As someone who might be a good fit to help lead or co-facilitate, would you be open to talking more about it?" Ava read it twice. Who could have recommended her? She had no close friends, no one who had seen her past the noise, unless she remembered that girl. The one who smiled, just for a second. The next day, Ava sat beside her in the library. "Hey, you're Tessa, right?" The girl looked up, surprised. "Yeah. Thanks for the smile yesterday." Tessa blinked. I mean, you just looked like you were trying. I know how hard that is." Ava smiled gently. Trying is the hardest part, but it's where change begins. Ended up studying together for nearly 2 hours that evening, quietly, just the sound of pages turning and pencils scratching notes. But to Ava, it felt like the beginning of something. Honest, that Friday, something unexpected happened. Rachel cornered her in the hallway near the lockers. Oh, no Bree, no Lena, just her. "You think this little act is going to make people forget who you really are?" Rachel said, her voice low, almost venomous. Ava met her eyes. "Calm, steady. Who I really am is someone you don't understand." Rachel leaned in, sneering. "You're weak." Ava didn't blink. "That's what you want to believe. Because if I'm not weak, then what does that make you?" Rachel froze. Just for a second, it was enough, and Ava stepped around her. Not rushed, not afraid. She didn't look back, but she felt it, the crack in Rachel's armor. That night, Ava wrote something in her journal. "I thought strength meant not breaking, but maybe real strength is breaking and still standing back up." She closed the notebook, turned off the light, and curled into bed. Her heart a little softer, her spirit a little stronger. A week passed, and with each day, Ava Mitchell grew a little less invisible, a little more undeniable. It wasn't that the bullying stopped completely. Rachel still tossed sharp looks, like daggers, and Bree still whispered cruel jokes when Ava walked by. But something had shifted. People had started to notice. Ava's professors began calling on her more in class, drawn to the clarity and care in her answers. A small group of students started sitting with her during lunch. Not friends yet, but warm presences who made the room feel less cold. But what surprised Ava the most was Lena Torres. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. The sky was pale and the hallways buzzed with lazy post-launch energy. Ava was at her locker, switching out her books, when she heard a quiet voice beside her. "Hey, Ava." She turned, startled. Lena stood there, clutching her notebook like a shield. She looked uncomfortable. Nervous Ava blinked. "Hi." Lena glanced around, then leaned closer. I just wanted to say what they've been doing to you. It's wrong. Dead. And I'm sorry I didn't speak up." Ava stared at her for a second, trying to decide if this was a trap. But Lena's eyes weren't mocking. They were soft, tired, real. "Why are you telling me this now?" Ava asked quietly. Lena looked down. "Because I used to think staying silent made me safe. But watching you, it made me realize silence just makes me complicit." A pause. Then Ava nodded once. "Thank you." Lena exhaled like she'd been holding her breath all semester. Later that night, Ava sat on the edge of her dorm bed, arms wrapped around her knees, thinking people were changing. Not because she fought back with force, but because she refused to disappear. She existed fully. And that was a kind of resistance on its own. That weekend, she emailed the wellness center. "Hi, I'd love to learn more about the peer support group. I think I might be ready to help someone the way I needed help once." The following Monday brought something no one expected. Rachel Carter snapped. It began during history class. Ava had offered a thoughtful response to a question about power structures and silent revolutions. The professor praised her. The room gave a quiet murmur of approval. Rachel slammed her notebook shut, loud. Everyone turned, seriously. Rachel hissed. "Are we all pretending she's suddenly interesting now? Like she wasn't just a mute background prop for 3 months?" The silence that followed was thick. A few heads turned toward Ava, but most turned away from Rachel. And then Tessa, from across the room, said softly, "At least she doesn't use fear to get people to like her." Rachel's eyes went wide, her mouth opened, then shut. She looked around, expecting someone to back her up, but Bree was pretending to write something. And Lena was watching Ava with quiet respect. Rachel stood up, grabbed her bag, and stormed out of the room. The professor didn't stop her. Ava sat there stunned. Not because Rachel had lashed out, but because someone else had stood up for her. And that was new by Thursday. Something even more remarkable happened. Rachel was missing from class. Bree had started sitting with another group. Lena, oddly, had started sitting with Ava during lectures. At lunch, a small group gathered at Ava's table. Tessa, a kind boy named Drew, who was in her writing seminar, and Maya, a transfer student who admitted she almost left the school because she felt so alone. Till she saw Ava. "You just looked like you were surviving something," Maya said, and I thought maybe I could too. Ava didn't have words for how that made her feel. She just smiled and held on to it. That night, Ava walked alone to the rooftop. Not because she was lost, but because she remembered. The wind was cold, and the stars were quiet, blinking above the city lights. She stood at the edge again, the very same spot where weeks before she almost let go of everything. And now, she let go of something else. The shame, the pain, the lie that she was weak. Because she felt deeply, she closed her eyes and whispered into the dark, "I was never the problem. I was the proof that you can hurt, still heal." It had been just over a month since Ava first arrived at Willow Heights University, and yet it felt like a lifetime ago. That lonely, frightened version of her, curled up inside herself, hoping to disappear. Now she wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't loud either, but she had presence, like the steady sound of rain, soft but constant. The peer support group officially launched that week. Ava walked into the small conference room on the second floor of the Student Wellness Center with a sense of quiet nervousness. There were 5 chairs in a circle. She took one. 2 minutes later, the door opened, and in walked someone she hadn't expected. Lena Torres. She paused when she saw Ava. For a heartbeat, their eyes met. Then Lena gave a small, almost shy smile, and sat down. The others trickled in. Maya, Tessa, a quiet boy named Devin, and a girl named Callie, who carried her anxiety like it was stitched to her hoodie sleeves. The counselor. Ms. Green introduced the group gently, like one might introduce old friends to each other in a dream. Her voice was calm, almost like Ava's. "You're here not because you're broken," she said softly. "You're here because you've carried things alone for too long." Ava felt something flutter inside her chest, not pain, not fear, recognition she belonged. Here, and maybe. She always had. The next day, as Ava was leaving her writing class, someone called her name. "Hey, Ava." She turned to see Jordan Blake, a second-year student known for his photography work on campus. He was tall, with gentle brown eyes and a quiet kind of confidence. "Hi," she said, unsure. Jordan walked up, hands in his hoodie pockets. "Sorry, this is random, but I've been working on a project about resilience. People who've gone through stuff and come out stronger. And I heard about you, what you went through with Rachel, how you're helping others now." Ava blinked. Her heart skipped. I'm not sure I'm the right person for that," he smiled. "I think you're exactly the right person." A pause. "You don't have to say yes. I just thought maybe someone like you could help someone else feel seen." Ava nodded slowly. "Okay, maybe I'll think about it." That evening, Ava sat on her bed, her journal open in her lap. She thought about what Jordan said. How strange, how surreal. Someone now looked at her and saw strength, when just weeks ago, she only saw emptiness. She wrote, "Healing isn't loud. It's small and soft and patient. And sometimes, healing walks into your life wearing someone else's smile, until you learn to wear your own again." 2 days later, Ava joined Jordan in the courtyard for the photo project. He was kind, never rushed her. Let her speak only when she wanted to. She didn't pose. She just was, and somehow, in his lens, that was enough. Later, showed her the shots on his camera screen, her sitting on a bench, sunlight filtering through. The trees above her, her hair catching the light like gold thread. "You look like peace," he said, and Ava. Ava felt like peace. But stories like Ava's aren't fairy tales. Healing is real. But the past still echoes. And on one chilly afternoon, as Ava waited in line for coffee at the campus cafe, she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Wow. Look who thinks she owns the place now." She turned slowly. Rachel, her once flawless hair looked a little disheveled. Her tone wasn't as sharp as before. Her eyes, though still hard, carried something else now. Not anger, not power. Just bitterness. Ava held her gaze. She didn't flinched, she didn't smirk. She just said, calmly, "I never wanted to own the place. I just stopped letting you rent space in my mind." Rachel blinked. A pause. Then, for the first time, Rachel looked away. She stepped out of line and walked out the door. No final word, no slam of power, just gone. Ava picked up her coffee, hands steady, shoulders relaxed. And as she stepped into the fading light of the day, she felt something deep inside her. Not loud, not flashy, just whole. That night in the support group, Callie shared something personal for the first time. Her voice trembled as she spoke about feeling like she didn't deserve to be loved. Ava listened. Really listened. Then said softly, "You don't need to earn love. You just need to stop believing the lie that you don't deserve it." Callie looked at her, eyes watery, and smiled. And later, when Ava left the center, Jordan was waiting outside, leaning against the rail. "Hey," he said, "I was wondering if you wanted to help me organize a gallery show, not about pain." but about transformation. Ava thought about it. Thought about the rooftop, the red cardigan, the stolen books, the smile from a stranger, the journal pages filled in darkness, now blooming with light. She looked up at him and said, "Yeah, I'd like that." Ava Mitchell stood inside the student art gallery 2 weeks later, her heart beating like a steady drum. The space was softly lit, warm and inviting, photos hanging from simple wires, words printed beneath them like quiet echoes. The walls were filled with portraits of students, not smiling fake smiles, but real, open faces, honest eyes. Each photo captured something raw and beautiful. Resilience, that was the theme. And somewhere near the center wall was a photo of Ava. She hadn't wanted it to be front and center. Jordan had respected that, but even still, there it was. Tucked between two others, her face half lit by afternoon sun, soft expression on her lips. Beneath it, the caption read, "You're allowed to break, but you don't have to stay broken." People gathered around the space in small clusters, whispering softly. No loud conversations, no posturing, just quiet reflection, as if the whole gallery had adopted Ava's tone. Jordan stepped beside her, hands in his pockets. "You see them?" he asked, nodding toward a group of students reading the captions under her portrait. "That's your voice, speaking through every one of them?" Ava swallowed the lump in her throat. "It doesn't feel like my voice. It feels bigger than me now." Jordan smiled. "That's how you know it's real." As the night unfolded, more people arrived. Callie came, wearing a pale blue dress, her hair in loose curls. She waved from across the room, eyes bright. Maya and Tessa brought cookies, homemade, burnt edges and all. Even Lena showed up and walked straight to Ava. "You know," she said softly, "I almost didn't come. I still feel like I don't belong in the version of your story that ends well." Ava turned toward her. "You do, 'cause you chose to change. That takes more courage than pretending you were never wrong." Lena blinked, clearly not expecting grace. Then she smiled. "Thank you." Later that evening, Ava stepped into the courtyard just outside the gallery. Needing a moment of air, the stars were scattered gently across the sky like powdered sugar. The breeze cooled against her skin. She closed her eyes, and without warning, she felt tears, not the kind that burn, the kind that cleanse. She remembered everything. Rachel's words, the rooftop, the isolation, and now this standing in a space filled with the proof that pain does not win unless we let it. She whispered, "To the night I stayed, and that changed everything." But not every story closes cleanly. The next morning, she found an envelope under her dorm door. No name, just a folded sheet of paper. She opened it with caution. Inside, in neat cursive, was a short message. Asterisk, "You don't know what you've done. You made me see myself. I hated you for that. But now I think I hate myself less. R." Asterisk Ava stared at it for a long time. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just held the paper against her chest, closed her eyes, and let the silence wrap around her like a blanket. Rachel hadn't apologized. Not directly, but something had shifted, even if Ava never saw her again. She'd know that someone had changed, just by Ava choosing not to crumble. That afternoon, Ava met with Ms. Green, the counselor. "You've helped a lot of students, Ava, more than you realize." Ava shrugged gently. "I didn't do anything special. I just survived out loud." Ms. Green smiled. "That's exactly why it mattered." A few days later, Ava found herself on stage, not in front of hundreds, just a cozy evening event for mental health awareness. She had agreed hesitantly to speak. The microphone felt too tall, her hands too cold, but when she looked out and saw familiar faces, Jordan, Tessa, Callie, Lena, something settled in her. She spoke slowly, calmly, like a lullaby in human form. "There was a time," she began, "when I thought no one would notice if I disappeared. I thought pain made me weak, and silence would keep me safe. But I was wrong about both." She glanced at the floor, then back up. "Pain taught me where I end, and where I begin. In silence." It doesn't protect you. It buries you. The room was still. I don't have a dramatic ending. I wasn't rescued. I rescued myself. And because I did, okay, I can help others find that same rope when they're drowning. Her voice trembled only slightly at the last line. If you're listening to this, and you feel alone, that I see you and I stayed, so you could too. When she stepped down from the stage, the applause wasn't thunderous. It was soft, sustained, and it meant more than any noise could. That night, Eva didn't write in her journal. She didn't have to. The story was being written now in the eyes of the people she passed in the halls, in the messages left in the gallery guest book. In the subtle way, other girls started sitting taller in the cafeteria. In how professors lingered at her answers with real respect, her life was no longer about surviving the pain of the past. It was about showing others how to survive theirs. The final stretch of the semester arrived with early sunsets and the scent of cold in the wind. Students bustled around campus, chasing grades, packing bags, making holiday plans. But Ava Mitchell, she was building something quiet and lasting. The peer support group had grown. What began with 6 nervous students now held 14 each, one carrying different pain, but drawn to the same silent permission Ava offered. You don't need to be perfect to be loved. She didn't lead the group like a counselor. She led it like a survivor, gentle, grounded, honest. And when she spoke, people listened. One evening, as the group wrapped up, Devin, the shy boy who had never said more than a few words, lingered behind. Ava noticed. Double quotes. Hey, she said softly, gathering her notebook. Everything okay? He looked up then, down, fiddling with his sleeve. I just wanted to say thank you for not making it weird, for letting people talk without fixing them. Ava's lips curved into a small smile. Sometimes being heard is the fix. Devin gave a single, quiet nod. It's the first place I don't feel invisible. He walked away after that, but the words stayed with her all night. Later that week, Ava sat in the back of the library, reviewing notes when a familiar voice surprised her. You're not easy to find. She looked up Jordan. He held 2 hot chocolates and offered her one without a word. She took it, her hands brushing his just for a second. Thanks, she said. Cold day. Jordan nodded, pulling out the chair across from her. I've been thinking. He began, hesitant. We always talk about the healing, the growth. But I never asked what was the turning point for you. Ava tilted her head. You mean when I stopped wanting to disappear? Jordan nodded. Ava was quiet for a moment. Then was a rooftop. Middle of the night. I was tired, numb, and I thought maybe the world would be lighter without me in it. Jordan didn't speak. He just listened. But then I remembered my mom's voice. Not a real one, just something. She used to say that I had light even when I couldn't feel it. She looked down at her cup. That's when I realized I didn't want to die. I just wanted the pain to die. And maybe, if I could hang on long enough, the pain would leave before I did. Jordan swallowed hard. His eyes were soft. I'm really glad you stayed? Ava smiled. Not the practice kind. The full, genuine kind. Me too. Finals came and went. Ava passed every class. She didn't aim to be perfect, just present. Each time she opened a textbook, answered a question, or helped someone else through a hard moment. It was like reclaiming pieces of herself. One quiet victory at a time. Then came the winter showcase, a closing event before the campus emptied out for break. Jordan invited her to help set up hanging prints, checking light angles, arranging seating for a small evening poetry reading. At one point, she stood beneath a string of fairy lights, arms full of folded programs. When Jordan stopped, what? He was doing and just looked at her, you know. This place is better with you in it. Ava blinked. What do you mean? I mean this school, this room, this moment. All of it. It's better because you stayed. She didn't know what to say, so she nodded, and for once, let herself feel seen. That night, Ava read a short poem at the showcase. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't even written to impress. It was just true. They told me I was soft, I should toughen up. But they didn't see that softness is steel. 2. They never noticed the quiet ones who endure storms without screaming. The room was still. Someone in the front wiped away a tear. When she sat back down, Jordan leaned over and whispered, "That was the strongest thing I've ever heard." The next day, Ava packed her bags to return home for winter break. Zipped her suitcase, she glanced around her dorm room. When she first arrived, it had felt like a cage. Now, it felt like proof she had survived. Her phone buzzed. A message from Lena. "Thank you for not giving up. Not on yourself, not on us. See you in January." Then another, from Tessa. "Have a peaceful break. You deserve softness." And one last message. From a number she didn't recognize at first, but as she read it, she knew. "I'm starting therapy next week. It's terrifying, but I just keep hearing your voice in my head. At the way you didn't flinch. Thank you for planting that in me." Our Rachel.Ava sat down slowly. She didn't reply. She didn't have to, because this was full circle. Winter break came like a hush across the town. Snow dusted the sidewalks like powdered sugar. Soft and clean. Streetlights flickered like sleepy eyes, and the air tasted of chimney smoke and distant music. Ava was home now, back in her old room, with the soft blue walls and faded posters of childhood memories. Her mother, Ava Mitchell, noticed the change right away, not just in Ava's words, but in the way she stood, taller, calmer, whole. They cooked together that first night, Ava stirring pasta, her mother humming softly behind her, eyes full of questions, but heart full of patience. Finally, Ava spoke. "Mom, I almost didn't make it." Elaine stopped humming. "I know," she said, gently. "I could feel it. Even when you didn't say anything." Ava set the spoon down. Her voice was steady, but her fingers trembled. There was this night on the rooftop. Her mother turned and pulled her into a long, deep hug, the kind that says you don't have to finish if it's too hard. But Ava did finish. She told her everything, about Rachel, about the bullying, the note, the rooftop, the group, the photo gallery, Jordan, her. Mother listened without a single interruption, only nodding, brushing her hair back sometimes. Like she had when Ava was small and tangled in dreams. When it was all out, Ava felt like she'd shed a layer of skin she never wanted to wear again. Elaine kissed her forehead. "You are the strongest thing I've ever made." Ava smiled into her mother's shoulder. "You made my light, even when I forgot how to hold it." The next morning, Ava woke early and bundled herself in a coat and scarf. The cold bit her cheeks, but it was crisp and clean, the kind that makes you feel real again. She walked through the familiar streets of her neighborhood, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel like the broken girl coming home to hide. She felt like the girl who had returned to bring light. Back with her at the local coffee shop, the one with crooked tables and overcooked muffins. Ava saw someone she hadn't expected. Emily. Owen's her old high school friend. Or, more accurately, the one who ghosted her when things got hard. Emily's eyes widened when she saw Ava. "Wow, Ava." "Hi." Ava gave a quiet smile. "Hi." Emily looked awkward, shifting her phone in her hands. "You look different. In a good way, I mean. College must be treating you well?" Ava tilted her head. "Not at first, but it taught me who I really am." Emily looked down, a flicker of guilt. "I heard a little from social media. That you spoke at your school, that you're like helping people now?" Ava nodded gently. "I'm trying to." A pause. Emily's voice dropped lower. "I should have been there for you." Back in high school, Ava looked at her for a long moment, then said softly, "It hurt, but I understand now. You weren't cruel, just scared." Emily blinked. "You're not mad?" "No, because I learned something beautiful from all of it. That sometimes when people disappear, it makes space for better people to arrive." Emily nodded slowly. Then, with a soft breath, "I'm really happy for you, Ava." And this time Ava believed her. Later that evening, Jordan called. "You're a hard girl to reach," he teased. Gently, Ava smiled into the receiver. "I've been walking through my old life, and it fits differently now, like a coat I've outgrown but still love." Hey. He was quiet for a moment. "I miss your quiet. Miss your quiet." Ava blushed. That's the first time anyone said that. "Well, mean it. So, would it be weird if I said I wanted to see you again? Like, after break?" Ava's heart fluttered, but not in a way that made her question herself. In a way that said, "You're safe here." "It wouldn't be weird," she whispered. "Then it's a date." As the break drifted by, Ava visited her old teachers, dropped off clothes at a women's shelter, and reread old journal pages, the ones filled with pain, confusion, self-doubt. She didn't rip them up. She folded them and tucked them into a box labeled "Proof I Grew." By the time the semester resumed, Ava returned to campus not just as a student, but as someone people remembered. A girl who didn't burn bridges, planted gardens on their ruins. The Wellness Center invited her to speak at orientation for incoming freshmen. The gallery offered her a space to curate a spring exhibit, "Softness is Not a Flaw." And Jordan? He met her at the train station, hot drink in hand, smile full of home. "Welcome back," he said. Ava reached for his hand. It fit. "It feels like I never really left, just came back more. Me." And as they walked together beneath the snow-heavy sky, Ava didn't think about Rachel, or the rooftop, or even the fear. She thought about the quiet courage that had been inside her all along, waiting like seed beneath the ice. The spring semester unfurled like petals, quiet, patient, unhurried. Everything at Willow Heights University felt different. But it wasn't the campus that had changed. It was Ava. She walked with a steadiness now. It's the kind that didn't demand attention, but gently commanded respect. People greeted her not out of politeness, but from genuine recognition. She wasn't the girl who broke. She was the girl who stood back up. The peer support group, once small, had now filled 2 entire rooms. Ava was no longer just a quiet attendee. She'd been asked to facilitate each Tuesday evening. She and Ms. Green sat in a wide circle with students, some trembling, some tearful, all tired from holding too much alone. Ava spoke in that calm, measured voice people had grown to. "Trust. This isn't a space to fix you." She would say, "It's a space to remind you that you don't need fixing to be loved." Callie now, one of the group's most outspoken voices, nodded fiercely whenever Ava spoke. Lena helped set up chairs. Tessa brought soft blankets she crocheted over winter break. Warm, it's messy, and stitched with love. And Devin, once too afraid to say his name, now kept time for each speaker, and sometimes read poems aloud. This wasn't a group anymore. It was a garden. Each one of them a bloom that once thought it would never grow again. On a quiet Thursday afternoon, Ava walked across campus with Jordan, talked about everything: books, music, fear, the little victories that most people missed. She paused suddenly under a blossoming tree, the branches dusted with pale pink. "It's weird," she said, "how pain makes you feel like you'll never breathe properly again. And then one day, you wake up, and you're just living." Jordan glanced at her. "You don't just live. You lift everyone around you." Ava smiled. "I don't always feel like I'm doing anything special." "That's what makes it special," he said softly. "You're not trying to be brave. You just are." Later that week, Ava received an email from the university board. They'd heard about her work, the support group, the gallery event, the spoken word reading. They wanted her to speak at the upcoming Mental Health and Resilience Summit, hosted by the school and attended by students from across the region. It wasn't just a student talk, it was the keynote. Ava stared at the screen. For a long time, she wasn't the kind of person who sought stages. But maybe she was the kind of person who could make the stage safer for others. She said yes. The following month passed in a gentle blur. Ava prepared her speech, not with grandeur, but with grace. Every word was personal, honest, forged from memory and mercy. On the day of the summit, she stood backstage, clutching her notes, heart fluttering like wings in her chest. Jordan found her there. "Hey," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek, nervous. Ava nodded. "I keep thinking, why me?" He took her hand gently. "Because you're not performing. You're proof." When she stepped onto the stage, the lights were warm, the silence full of breath. She looked out at the sea of faces, some curious, some skeptical, some aching, and she began. "My name is Ava Mitchell. A year ago I stood on a rooftop and thought, the world would be better without me. I wasn't weak. I was just tired of being strong alone." She paused, scanning the room. "I was new, bullied, ignored, and so afraid of being seen that I almost erased myself. But something happened that changed everything. Someone saw me, not to judge, but to understand." She told them about the cardigan, the rooftop, the gallery, the quiet notes passed beneath dorm doors, the friends who found her not in her perfection, but in her pain. "Healing doesn't shout," she continued. "It whispers, and if you're quiet enough to listen, it says, stay one more day, one more class, one more sunrise, and soon you'll be the voice helping someone else stay too." The audience was still, and then soft, warm applause, like rain against a window. Ava stepped down from the stage, heart full and light. After the event, students lined up to talk to her, not for autographs, not for photos, just to say thank you. Some cried, some simply touched her arm, their eyes saying what their lips couldn't. One girl whispered, "I had a rooftop too. But you just helped me step back from the edge." Ava nodded gently, holding the girl's hand for a moment. "I'm so glad you stayed." That night, Ava lay in bed in her dorm room, gazing at the ceiling. She wasn't crying. She wasn't anxious. She was still. She had no doubt anymore. She belonged, not because she fought her way in, but because she stopped hiding. She closed her eyes, her breath deep and even, and whispered the words she once wrote in her journal, the words that now lived inside her for good. "I'm allowed to take up space. I'm allowed to be heard. And, most of all, I'm allowed to heal." Spring gave way to early summer, and the scent of lilacs drifted across the Willow Heights campus like a memory returning home. Ava walked slowly under the shade of blossoming trees, journal in hand. The grass was soft underfoot, the air gentle. A group of first-year students passed by laughing, unaware of the girl who once walked those same paths with her head down, afraid to be seen. She didn't envy their ease. She understood it now, because she had earned hers. One morning, Eva opened her inbox and found a message from the University Board of Trustees. She blinked at the subject line. "Congratulations, Ava Mitchell. Nominee for the Student Humanitarian Award." Her breath caught. The award was rarely given, a recognition reserved for students who made an impact beyond themselves. She stared at the screen for a long time, a small smile forming slowly. She didn't cry. She didn't cheer. She just whispered to herself, "I stayed. And now I'm seen for why." Later that afternoon, Ava visited the Wellness Center for what was now a weekly ritual, the Healing Letters Project. It was her idea. A quiet little table where students could write anonymous letters of hope, which were then tucked into random library books, dining hall trays, or slipped under dorm room doors every week. The table was full, letters written in all colors of ink, some typed, some messy, all full of one thing: kindness. She picked one up and smiled as she read it. "Dear stranger, I know you're tired. I know it's hard, but look at you, still trying. Still here. That's not weakness. That's bravery. Most people can't see love. Someone who gets it." She added her own in her careful handwriting. "Healing isn't about forgetting the pain. It's about no longer letting it speak louder than your dreams." She folded it gently and slipped it into the stack. That evening, as Ava left the center, the golden light of early sunset spilled across campus. She met Jordan on the stone steps near the art building. He handed her a small notebook wrapped in twine. "What's this?" she asked, curious. "Open it." Sighed. She found photos. Dozens of them. All taken over the past year: the rooftop, the gallery, the poetry night, the peer group laughing together in a circle, some blurry from movement, but beautiful, and then near the back a photo of her sitting on the grass with her journal. Open sunlight in her hair, her face turned up toward the sky. She looked live. "I call it the becoming," Jordan said softly. "It's your story in still frames. But the real magic is, I didn't capture your strength. You gave it to the lens." Ava's throat tightened. "This is the best gift I've ever received." "No," Jordan said. "You are." The weeks passed like pages turning in a quiet book. The semester ended. Finals were finished. Projects submitted. Goodbyes whispered across dorm room halls, and on the last day, Ava found herself standing once more on the rooftop, not to escape, but to reflect. She wore the same red cardigan from that night. The wind toyed with her hair, but this time, her hands weren't trembling. They were steady. Behind her, a door creaked open. "Knew I'd find you here." It was Lena. She walked over, standing beside Ava without a word. They both looked out at the sky. "You were my warning," Lena said quietly. "But you became my teacher." Ava turned to her. "You were my test. And somehow, also part of my healing." They both smiled. No bitterness. No wait. Just peace. Later that evening, Ava packed her things, books, photos, folded letters, and that small twine-wrapped notebook Jordan gave her. Before she zipped her suitcase, she opened her journal one last time and wrote, "This is the last page of my old story. The girl who almost vanished became the girl who helped others stay. And now, I'm ready to begin the next one." She closed the journal and let the silence finish the sentence. At the Student Humanitarian Awards, Ava walked onto the stage in a simple dress, her hair pinned back softly, heart full. The hall was full of people, but Ava didn't shake. She looked out and saw faces, not a crowd. She saw Maya, Tessa, Devin, Callie, Ms. Green, and Jordan. All of them, pieces of her story. All of them, still writing their own. When the university president handed her the small glass award etched with her name, the audience rose to their feet. Not because she was perfect, but because she had become whole. Later, in the quiet as she stood outside, beneath the stars, Jordan joined her, slipping his hand into hers. "What happens now?" he asked softly. Ava looked up at the sky. "I think, help more people stay. I tell stories. I listen. And maybe, someday, I write it all down for someone else who's on their rooftop." He looked at her, eyes full. "And what about you? What do you want?" She leaned her head gently against his shoulder, to keep walking forward too. "Keep choosing soft things to keep living out loud. Even if it's quiet." And so she did. The girl who once wanted to disappear became the reason others chose to stay. Not because she roared, but because she whispered, and the world listened. 1 year later, sky over Willow Heights glowed with the soft blush of early spring. The trees were full again. Students lounged on the grass. Music floated gently from windows, and somewhere among them, walking slow. Journal in hand was Ava Mitchell, but she wasn't just a student anymore. She was now a resident mentor, published essayist, and founder of the Stay Project, a nonprofit dedicated to helping young people with silent struggles feel seen before they slipped away. What started as folded letters, quiet meetings, and whispered check-ins had become something bigger than she ever imagined. And yet, she was still her, still quiet, still soft-spoken, still the kind of girl who liked rainy windows and cardigan sleeves pulled over her hands. But now, that softness wasn't armor. It was her power. The Stay Project had grown into a digital home for those in pain, a place where students from dozens of campuses could share their truths anonymously. It offered peer-led circles, gentle mentorship, and a library of healing letters written by those who had been on the brink and chosen to stay. Ava's letter was the very first one in the archive. Asterisk, dear you, if you're reading this at 2 a.m., wondering if you matter. Let me tell you the truth, you do. I know the silence hurts. I know the weight feels unlivable. But stay. Please stay. Because someday someone will need your story, and the world will be gentler because you existed. With love, Ava asterisk. One morning, Ava walked into the university bookstore, not expecting anything out of the ordinary, and there, right by the display of student authors, was her book, a small, soft-covered collection titled Stay, Letters for the Lost and Finding. She picked up a copy and ran her fingers over. Her name, it didn't feel like pride. It felt like peace. Ms. Green had written the foreword. Jordan had taken the cover photo, and every chapter was a story of survival told with slow, careful love. That afternoon, Ava met Jordan beneath the same tree where they'd once talked about pain and poetry. He had his camera. She had her journal. He held up a small, weathered envelope. "Found this in one of my textbooks," he said. "At first I thought it was one of yours." She opened it slowly. Inside was a letter written in neat, round handwriting, *, "Dear stranger. I almost left last night, but then I remembered something I heard once, that one person choosing to stay can change someone else's ending. So I stayed, and I think maybe someday I'll write a letter like this too." Ava looked up at Jordan, eyes full. "That's the whole reason," she whispered. "What is?" "It's all of it. Not to erase pain, but to prove it doesn't get the final word." Later that night, Ava returned to the rooftop, not in secret this time. She had permission now. A quiet space reserved for students needing peace. They'd renamed it after the gallery project. It was now known as the Ava Room. For those who stayed, she sat down, legs crossed, breeze soft in her hair. Below her, the world was still moving. But up here, it was calm. She took out her journal, opened to a blank page, and began to write not about pain this time, but about possibility. Her final entry of the year read, "You were not broken. Ava, you were just early in your story. You are proof that silence can bloom, that healing is quiet, that the softest ones carry the fiercest light. Keep going, because someone, somewhere, is reading your words right now." In choosing to live somewhere in a different state, a girl sat on the edge of her dorm bed, phone in hand, tears in her eyes. She was tired, lost, heavy with silence. But she had found Ava's letter, and for the first time in weeks, she paused and whispered the same words Ava once whispered to herself: "Stay." And so she did, and you. Listening now, gently resting in the quiet arms of night, you are not alone. You matter, deeply, completely, always, whatever weight you're carrying. Set it down now. Let your breath soften. Let your thoughts float like leaves. Because if Ava taught us anything, it's this: you are worth staying for, exactly as you are, exactly as you are.